Everybody else was when they were playing for the first time.
Hell yeah. It took me a while. At first I thought, God, I'm so good at this. I just kept winning. And then I just couldn't beat bosses. So I had my friend play the hard stuff for me. And I have to say, as frustrating as this was, I never even made it far enough to meet my own character. No, it's really sad. And also, I love games. I don't have a platform at home because I would never leave the house, ever. And I do most of my recording auditions from home anyway, so there's I think it's too much being at home. Yes.
Do you see any role for yourself in the latest Final Fantasy 13 song?
Sorry?
Do you see any role for your character in the new Final Fantasy?
I was sure hoping that I would get a call from them saying, you know, this is when you're due back in the studio, but she is, to the best of my knowledge, the only playable character. I'm not sure why. I actually haven't heard much about the game. I don't really know a lot of press about it, but because of the way 13 ended, with her and Video essentially saving the world, and then being brought back. I don't know how many of you played 13 too, but they were, you know, brought back in some, you know, some small capacity, I guess, to help Sarah get back through the timeline. And so all signs indicate that they might be coming back, but I don't know. I hope so, but I haven't gotten any information. Yes.
What was it like voicing Bang?
It was awesome. It was awesome. I always said that if they kept asking me to play her, I would do it as long as they would. I mean, do you have any specific questions about the techniques or just being that character? What's that?
Australian accent.
Oh, the Australian. Well, in the audition, they did say this character has an Australian accent. I was like, great, that's one of the ones I can do. And it was really cool because a lot of people thought I was Australian. And what's good that I did my job. No, she was great. I really liked her because she was very unlike a lot of the female characters prior in that whole franchise, and she was originally written as a man.
Yeah.
And they changed her, I think, maybe to balance out the parties or just because she kind of fit better as a woman. But yeah, she was a lot of fun.
It does seem like I liked Vanille quite a bit.
What's that?
It looked like she liked Vanille quite a bit.
Never talked about that. There's been tons of speculation about the nature of that relationship, and me personally, I got the impression they were like family or sisters. They grew up together, or friends. I do think that the developers left that open to interpretation.
They didn't really explain anything.
There's definitely a scene where she checks for her brand, and the rest of the party goes. Because I'm like, well, of course, Vanille's brand is her skirt. Why wouldn't it be? I don't know. I literally can't say. I don't know. I think they definitely left it ambiguous, and so and that's kind of nice too, because why should it have to be?
If you're the Final Fantasy movie, you're saying
Oh, well, thank you. I need to grow about 5 inches and get a dragoon lance and learn how to jump off like a flying scorpion.
Parkour lessons together.
We are.
So
That's right. We're going to do some free running. So we're going to run up walls and fly and stuff. I love that. Please spread the word and tell them that's what you want. Anybody? Nobody has any? Yes.
Do you find more words being introduced into your vocabulary, like dragoon and spear and stuff like that?
I really did have to learn the game lingo. There was a lot of these weapons that I had never heard of, and people were asking me if I preferred this or that. I said, I don't even know what those are.
Well, it was 13 veterans had to learn the game lingo too, so.
Well, that's good. Now I have a question for you guys. Did you find that the game was too linear? Did you want more side missions?
I wish it was more like when it was on Grand Pulse, because that was kind of boring until you got to Grand Pulse, and boring until you got there.
Well, yeah, because that was their planet, and there was. I think that's really where you start to learn their history.
And I wish they would have expanded more on Padra in the first one, like they did in the second one. Because there was like, when you read the Analects, when you got them all, it talked so much about Padra, but you only had like a brief glimpse into there when you fought for missions.
Yeah, and again, I wish I made it farther. Because I mean, look, and the game was absolutely beautiful. I was blown away by the animation. What I love about games now is that they're like playable movies. You know, just 70 hours as opposed to 2.
I always back Final Fantasy 13 when people say it's too linear for one reason alone. This is one of the very first Final Fantasies where every single person is on the run from the cops and everybody.
Right.
And so you can't necessarily walk into a town or an inn and be like, hey, I want to see the network. You are on our wall right here. We're supposed to arrest you.
Right.
You can't do that.
Yes.
I just got a question about. Sorry, I just got back from eating.
How dare you?
So I actually had a question about 13. So you know how Vanille and Fang were turned to crystal, right? Why was your brand the only one that was frozen until after they all got turned out from seed? Because I don't understand that. Because they're both crystal. Why is only Vanille's not?
Gosh, if you don't understand, then I should.
Because like after they were all turned to seed, did you beat the game yet? Did you beat the game yet? Okay, so at the end they all turned to seed. I'm rooting for you.
No,
You've had 2 years, but
look, I mean, it came out 2.5 years ago, so I really should know the whole story by now.
So basically, everybody turns to seed except for Vanille and things like captured and shit. So, like, after they're turned back from seed, they have the same brand that Fang does, but Vanille never gets that. I don't understand that.
It's a good question, and it may have something to do with her special part in, in the focus. And I think Vanille and Fang's focus was the same, although Fang, I think, had a little more to sacrifice, which is why, she ends up going against Orphan, and then, and everybody else turns to Crystal for a second, and she's like, what the fuck just happened? It's a great question. One that, and like I said, if you don't understand it, then you're not going to be able to talk. Yes?
Oh, were you surprised that Fang turned into Ragnarok just out of pure rage? That's kind of
Sorry?
Oh, were you surprised that Fang turned into Ragnarok just out of pure rage towards the end of the game?
Well, I wasn't surprised only in that I was told that was what was going to happen. But I think it kind of made sense. It was very sad. I mean, because you certainly want the whole party to be, partying after everything's taken care of. But I think, it was important, I guess, as far as the story, because, everybody, they had to make a sacrifice so that everybody else could make it out. I wouldn't say it was much surprising as it was kind of disappointing. Yes?
Have you voice acted for anything other than video games? And if you have, how does it compare?
I started out doing a lot of commercials, a lot of commercial announcer stuff. I've done some animation, done some narration, actually, and I'm not new to voiceover at all, but I'm pretty new to anime, and I just did Hellsing Ultimate, in which I play Zoran Blitz. It was very, very nasty.
I hear like, yes.
She's nasty. Games I would think, as far as the trend in most games now, I would say that video game acting skews more towards the dramatic and more quote-unquote realistic sounding, whereas animation tends to be a lot more over the top and character, depending on what you're doing. I actually just worked on a game